I'd like to just mention some of the guys that were just are sometimes don't get a mention, and I want to make sure that I do that today to honour them. So I'd like to mention some bands from the Midlands. Denny Lane and the Diplomats. In that band, the drummer was Bev Bevan, who was later in ELO. Bev Bevan was in The Move. Bev Bevan, incredible drummer. And the Diplomats were an incredible band. They were tight, more like a pop band. Denny Lane was the lead singer. This was way before the Moody Blues. This is way before Denny Lane sang "You've Already Said," "Bone down, down to bone down, down to goodbye." When Denny sang that was just like the end of the world for me. So we have Denny Lane and the Diplomats. Dave Pegg. Sometimes he doesn't get talked about. Dave Pegg was an incredible bass player. And the first band I ever heard Dave playing was a band called Exception. And another band that he played in was the Uglies. They're both Birmingham bands. In the band Exception, there was a guitar player called Roger Hill who I went to school with. And Roger was 1 year ahead of me. And Roger became a friend over the years. Sadly, he's passed away now. But one of the first bands that Roger was in was a band called Exception. And the drummer with Exception was Alan Eastwood. We used to call him Bugsy Eastwood. And he was the singer and drummer in Exception. So in Exception they were such a good band. We had Dave Pegg playing bass. Bugsy was playing a nice Gretsch kit, 20-inch bass drum Gretsch. And then we had Roger Hill. Also with the Uglies, just coming back to the Uglies for a second, was Carl Palmer. Carl was about 15 years old and was outstanding as a drummer at 15 years old. And everybody was watching this guy, man, and it's just like, and he played so well with the Uglies. Later, he went on to join ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. There was a band there in Birmingham called The Move, which consisted of Roy Wood, Trevor Burton, Chris Kefford, or Ace Kefford as we knew him, Bev Bevan and Carl Wayne. Carl Wayne was in a band called The Vikings. That was I was still in school. I'm like 15, 16 years old, and we'd go down and watch Carl Wayne and The Vikings. And then they later moved to become The Move. So all of this is so historic. We learned Danny King and the Royals, which I didn't mention. There was other bands as well that was right there. Jeff Lynne, Bev Bevan, but I think both of those guys. Bev Bevan had a shot in Black Sabbath as well for a while. I think when I had to go back to the United States. Gene Vincent. Bebopalula. I don't know if you remember that, Mike. Bebopalula, she's my baby. And his band in England was called The Shouts. And believe it or not, round the corner from where I lived is where they rehearsed. I mean, literally round the corner. It was a 5-minute walk from where I was living. 5-minute walk, and I used to sit outside and listen to The Shouts with Gene Vincent rehearsing.
So Gene Vincent did Bebopalula in the United States with the Blue Caps, and then he moved to England?
No, he didn't move to England. When he was doing tours in England, he worked with the Shouts.
Okay.
And the Shouts were his backing band.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they were good too.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool, man. That was a hot band. And Gene Vincent was in there,
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I want to mention the Red Caps, because Red Caps were a band in Birmingham. They would play at the Plaza Handsworth back in the day. A lot of bands and their money and got their status by playing the ballrooms in Birmingham. And one of the ballrooms was the Plaza Handsworth. and the Red Caps would be there regularly. And I have a friend who played with the Red Caps. His name's Dave Walker, and Dave was a brilliant singer, and he went on to do bigger and better things. He was in a blues band for a long time, and he even auditioned for a while with Black Sabbath when Oz was going through some times where he needed some space for himself. So, but I'm just going to do a shout out now for Dave. I don't know if he's even where he is right now. I think he's back in stateside, but shout out to Dave. Traffic, Jim Capaldi. Jim Capaldi was a beautiful man. He was in a band called Deep Feeling. And when I was 16 years old, I was playing in my band, which was The Rest. And we would spend a lot of time playing at a little penthouse gig. And I watched Deep Feeling all the time. I became a fan. And I watched Geezer play there as well. I think by this time I'm like maybe 17 or 18 years old. My timelines might be a bit out, to be honest with you. But I watched Rare Breed as well, and Geezer was playing rhythm guitar in Rare Breed. And I love Deep Feeling. I'm going to fuck it up now because I can't remember some of the guys' names, but there's Luther Grosvenor who played lead guitar. Chris Wood, I think, played flute. I've forgotten who played bass. Deep Feeling were just on the floor, man, on the floor, just stomping. They were so good. And Jim Capaldi, of course, was the drummer in Deep Feeling. So we're at the penthouse, and I'm watching Deep Feeling, and I see Dave Mason, and I'm wondering why Dave Mason's watching Deep Feeling. And then about 2 or 3 days later, the penny dropped, and I've got, oh, that's why he's watching Dave Mason, And I don't want to assume, but I got a pretty good guess going on that's why Dave was watching. Those guys knew each other anyway, but it wasn't long after that Jim Capaldi left Deep Feeling and joined Traffic. So that's how historically some of those things go. You know what? I'm writing about some of this in my book, so I better be mindful to what I'm saying, I guess. But you know what? I don't give a fuck sometimes. It just has to come out. Luther Grosvenor went from Deep Feeling and joined Spooky Tooth. Mike Kelly played drums with Spooky Tooth. This was a Carlisle band. We're talking about things in Carlisle. Carlisle was such an influential place for us to play in as Black Sabbath. I have to talk about Cumbria, because Cumbria is where we played. There's a lot of places that didn't want to listen to what we were doing, but in Cumbria we got a lot of our first breaks, as well as Birmingham, and the place in Birmingham was Henry's Blues House. Luther Grosvenor, Greg Ridley, I want to mention Greg Ridley, who was the bass player in Spooky Tooth. Mike Harrison, who was the singer in Spooky Tooth. Gary Wright, who's from the United States, was the keyboard player in Spooky Tooth. All these bands were influential. They were the beginnings of other ways of looking at music. They were the beginnings of hardcore rock. They were all laying new things down. All the drummers were particularly incredible. And anyway, got to remember that Lemmy was from Stoke-on-Trent, from the Midlands. Slade, another incredible band. They came from Wolverhampton, with Noddy Holder, Don Powell, Jimmy Lee and Dave Hill. Pals of ours. And then the list could go on and on, but I can't go on and on because I know we have to do the radio show. So, but thanks for letting me share this stuff, Mike.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions though. First of all, a lot of these bands did record, but did all of these bands like the Exceptions and the some of those bands you mentioned, did they actually record music, or were they just live performance bands?
They made, I think, Exception they made a little demo record, and I actually bought it. But they didn't follow through too far.
Right.
It didn't go very far. Um, Dave Pegg, I think, had the longevity because Dave Pegg went on to play bass in Fairport Convention.
Okay.
And Fairport Convention was a very well-known folk group
Sure.
that lasted. Or they played all over the world. They're very, very popular.
Do you think there was anything special about that area of England, that of the United Kingdom, that brought about all of this music? Do you think there was anything special, or was it just something that was going on throughout England?
It was something that was going throughout Great Britain, period, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. There's so many great bands come from Ireland, and from Wales. So it was a thing that was going on. It was almost like a renaissance. It was a renaissance that I guess if we can say that the Beatles were the front guard line. They were like the visionary line or whatever. But there was so much other talent that was coming out, and various types of talent in Birmingham. Everybody bounced off everybody else. Right. So if somebody had an idea on Monday, then it would have been a recording on Thursday. So that's how quick these things moved. And some of these bands broke up by Saturday. So you've got to try to remember we're 16, 17-year-old kids.
Sure.
We're lucky if we make it to 18 sometimes. So I always considered it my first apprenticeship. All of what we're talking about is my first apprenticeship before we formed our band, which was Black Sabbath. And I was 19, but I'd already had a long apprenticeship before that. And I think a lot of these bands got direction. We'd steal each other's licks. We were influenced by other people's playing. People talk about John Bonham's right foot. Mick Kelly's right foot was something to be seen. There was a lot of other drummers that were playing, and this is absolutely no disrespect to John Bonham whatsoever. It's just there's other guys that don't necessarily get in the news who had they were unbelievable drummers. They were laying down a lot of rhythm, which if I have to go back and work on something good, I'm going to say I learnt it from the Good Golly Miss Molly in the fucking solo in Good Golly Miss Molly. Just check out what the drummer did. Because if you want to talk backbeats, then that drummer played the backbeat in Good Golly Miss Molly. So we're all listening to Good Golly Miss Molly, and we know what's that guy playing back there.
Right.
So if anybody's going to get credit round here, let's talk about Good Golly Miss Molly.
That's great.
That's Little Richard, man.
The other thing that strikes me from your story is that it sounds like any of these bands could have been the Beatles. They could have broke out like the Beatles did because it was all happening at the same time. It just happens that Mr. Epstein was able to put things together for him, I guess.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree partially. But the bands that were happening were able to go and write maybe one song or two songs. Okay. The Beatles were a factory. They were putting out hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. They weren't stopping for nobody.
Oh, that's great.
The Beatles were even writing songs for the other bands that were becoming popular. So let's put it in perspective.
Yeah, that definitely puts it into perspective. The Beatles factory. That's great.